Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick. We're here to continue our sequence of That One Play episodes. And a really interesting one today because it's not even a regular season or postseason play. That is most of these plays, obviously, in NFL history. This play came in a preseason game, and it was a preseason game played by Demarcus Robinson just in the last year. Here to talk about it with me is Dylan Cook. Dylan, how you doing?
Doing pretty well, thanks, Ken. I am getting over a respiratory illness, so my voice is a little impacted, but all should be good. I'm really excited to talk through this with you.
All right. Well, it sounds really good, Dylan. Give us a little bit of the setup for this because this is really interesting, the play you picked, and I love it when there's kind of a weird one here, and this definitely meets the standard. I had another one that was suggested today that is similar, but please, Dylan, take us through the setup on this.
Yeah, so I guess a good place to start is just with Demarcus Robinson's acquisition. So he was acquired, I think, just 4 days before the game on August 23rd of 2022. I thought the move was fine at the time. After last season, I was expecting, some investment at wide receiver. This wasn't exactly what I was looking for. But, I was excited to see a veteran added, somebody that has made plays when the number one and the number two go down in the past in Kansas City. So going back and rewatching the film, just getting into the game with a little more hindsight was pretty interesting. You can tell Tyler Huntley, even before the lingering shoulder injury that we heard about later in the season, was pretty clearly limited in his ability to stretch the field vertically. You see in the first quarter, he's largely throwing short passes, just like we saw at the end of last season. And the offense struggles pretty significantly through the first quarter. We end the first quarter down 3-0. And then they sub Tyler Huntley out, put Anthony Brown back in the game. So he takes the field to start quarter two. There's I think a short Tyler Beatty run for a few yards. And then the second play, Anthony Brown Jr. takes the field. Again, what does he do? He catches the snap. He clearly stares down Robinson right off the line of scrimmage, which draws the safety out of position. And then as soon as the corner and the safety bite on Robinson's head fake and a little bit of the plant, on the inside for the slant, Robinson hits the go. Brown puts it up. It's, looked like something like 30 air yards to my untrained eye, ends up being a 67-yard touchdown pass. And one of the only explosive passing touchdowns of this year's preseason. I mean, there were other passing touchdowns, but there was nothing, I think, over 20 air yards. I could be wrong, but I tried to go back and give it a thorough review. Robinson ends up finishing the game with 4 catches on 6 targets, 135 yards, a touchdown, and 22.5 yards per target. So pretty good overall. Yeah,
outstanding game. Obviously, it's a very understated way to put that. And great description of what happened on the play. A couple things I remember specifically was obviously in the last preseason game of the year, you're not going against top corners even by the second quarter. Oftentimes, it's 2s and 3s all the way. Sometimes it could be 3s by the second quarter that you're facing. So I don't know who the opposing defensive back. Do you happen to look and see who the opposing defensive back? Even the number would be good. I can look it up here from the game book I've got.
I think it was 34 or 36, as I recall. But
okay, so
I can't be sure.
34 would have been the starting cornerback Holmes. So that's
not him. I think it was someone named Butler, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
Nobody that I had recognized or heard of, to say the least.
Context is obviously important. That was still one of the greatest sluggo moves I've ever seen. And it's something we haven't seen from Ravens receivers in years, in terms of guys who had wiggle at the top of the route that would completely lose a defensive back. And he had a later out and go during the game. He lost, I think, a different defensive back on that play, but I might be wrong. It might have been the same guy. Either way, impressive also in terms of being able to do it twice. And, immediately you say this, if you've got other guys who can take advantage of the fact that their speed is feared in Duvernay, in Bateman, I think you got a little bit of that. Bateman doesn't have as much wiggle at the top of the route as he has the ability to run any different route. And cornerbacks just have to respect that and be a little bit slower to make their move. But this was real wiggle. I mean, this was really, I'm going to make you make the wrong move and then go kind of wiggle that we just had not seen from a Ravens receiver.
Yeah, he put the move on that DB. He plants that right foot, gives a little head fake, and then cuts right back up the field. And you can just tell the safety is completely lost. And then when he sees it, he starts to recover it. It almost reminded me of when Kyle Hamilton is way down at the line of scrimmage against the Dolphins and just totally lost.
Exactly what I was thinking when you started to say that. Yeah, that's a great analogy there. So that's really a cool play. Now, obviously, we had the play later, the out and go, and we don't have to go into that to any great detail. But it was the same kind of great wiggle at the top of the route. So, were you thinking? Because I know I was at that time, that this guy obviously has to be a big part of the offense in 2022, just based on that. The Ravens receivers, Prochet and Duvernay had shown some things in preseason, but he really showed more in the regular season once it began in terms of versatility and a greater range of use than he'd had before. But Prochet had really not shown much. There's always people think he'll be fine based on 7-on-7 practice and 11-on-11 even, but when it comes down to playing in games, it never seems to work out for him. And then who am I forgetting? That Demarcus Robinson, an acquisition during the season.
Well, they acquired Sammy Watkins pretty late in the season.
But that's not who I mean. Though. There's somebody else to start the season they had.
And
it was aside from Bateman, Prochet, and Duvernay, who were the three that basically were handing it. Tylan Wallace.
Sure, Tylan Wallace was had some routes in this game. And across the
Everyone loves TV Dad.
On the next TV Dad, presented by Progressive, TV Dad gets us through heartache.
Chin up, sport.
Oh, hey, TV Dad.
You know what heals all wounds?
Time?
No, it's remembering that drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds.
But Jen still doesn't want to be with me.
True. I actually saw her with your friend Brian earlier.
Wait, what?
Listen to your TV Dad. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary.
Welcome to BreezeLine, where you'll say ta-ta T-Mobile because we have 99.9% network reliability and they don't. That's right. Time, weather, or even streaming in a basement won't affect our superior service. That's because we have real internet backed by our fiber-powered network. And T-Mobile, well, they just have a 5G cellular network. So for a limited time, find your perfect speed with prices starting at $19.99 a month for 24 months. Terms and conditions apply. Go to breezeline.com to learn more.
Season, and he looked pretty good, but I think he was, if I recall, he was fairly limited in terms of where he was able to line up on the field still, which is, not really what you like to see out of somebody that's going to be thrust into a number 3, number 4 spot.
And it just to me personally, it looked like Robinson was our number 2 receiver after those plays. That only Bateman was the guy who should be getting more snaps based on what we saw.
I would agree. Bateman he's a technician. He's got the complete route package, great release. And you just, nobody else on the team really had anything like it until we saw Demarcus Robinson show some moves here. And then, of course, Duvernay displayed a lot of chops during the season and catching some really tight passes, but that's an aside.
So in terms of the regular season, obviously a little bit of a disappointment for Demarcus in terms of what happened, but he still played an awful lot.
He took a lot of snaps. I didn't get his snap count, but I believe he had something like just shy of 500 total yards on the season. Really a disappointment for someone whose skill set and the circumstances really aligned in a way that you'd think with Bateman's injury, he should have been picking up a significant portion of that sort of, star wide receiver X role. And he didn't really do that except for the Carolina Panthers game. He did take over that game, but that was about it.
669 snaps for the season for Robinson, which led all the Ravens receivers, of course. Actually, did he have more than Duvernay? I'm pretty sure he did, but because Duvernay was lost at the end of the year, but I'm not 100% sure of that. And Yeah, Duvernay ended up with 631. So a surprising number one guy, one of the few guys I think among that the Ravens have acquired in their 30s in the last decade, who's really ended up being good at all. And just even a little bit good is what I mean by that. He certainly wasn't. The season was, not exactly what the Ravens could have hoped, but he wasn't terrible. And the guys they picked up otherwise in their 30s, I'm thinking about are Des Bryant and Hushmanzada was a little more than that. But I think you have to probably go back to Anquan Bolden when they picked up an older receiver who still had something left in the tank. Mike Wallace, they got, he was a little bit older. Yeah. But I think I have this feeling that Mike Wallace might still only been about 27, 28 when he came to the Ravens, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
I'm not entirely sure, so I will defer to you on that.
No, he was 30. That's the standard age, and he's 72 receptions. That was 2016. Okay, so he'd be the last one who really fits that bill. So anyway, really,
well, he had a much more impressive season than Demarcus Robinson did this year.
Yeah. How about for next year, for 2023? Do you see Robinson as a guy the Ravens might like to re-sign?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because you can get a guy who has what it takes to go out and have a 100+ yard game. He can catch touchdowns. He can break big routes. And he can clearly perform in the clutch. He can perform in the postseason. He can perform when his, number one receiver goes down and he has to fill that void. I would say if you can get him for a pretty low number, I don't do too much thinking about salary cap and such. I just have so much going on in my life that I can't really get into that. But I think if you can get him for a very low number or a reasonable cap hit for next year, it would be great to put another weapon, irrespective of quality, in Lamar's arsenal.
Yeah. Okay. And hopefully it's Lamar's arsenal. We'll see. Yeah. So Urban and Worley just signed today for people, or yesterday. It's February 16th now. And both those guys, interesting continued pickups. Urban is earning the title of a survivor now in the NFL, a guy who for the Ravens is really filling an important role. It was sad for him that it never worked out in terms of getting a big contract, but he's a guy who is I really like as a player, and the Ravens obviously really find value in what he can provide on the defensive line. And then Worley, another guy who they transacted about 18 times during the season, and now they've signed him again. I'm not exaggerating on that, but I think it was the single most by a Raven in team history. Where he's up and down off the practice squad, elevations, and released, and then re-signed, released, re-signed. And it's nice to see the Ravens get a guy they obviously have some confidence in. And believe me, they wouldn't have 18 signings if they didn't have that kind of confidence in him. So I could see Demarcus Robinson sticking around for another year as a hopefully, a number 4 option or so at wide receiver.
Yeah, I'd like to see him at number 4. And you expect injuries and you expect him to move up. And I think that's all part of the equation.
Okay. All right. Outstanding, Dylan. Great to have you on for this. Appreciate you coming forward with a kind of an off the wall topic. Hope you feel better. Tell folks where they can talk football with you online.
Sure. Yeah. Football, I don't tweet too much. It's about the only thing I talk online though. And you could find me online on Twitter at Dylan, DILLON 1619, which makes me sound like a bot, but I promise you I'm real. And I will try to be responsive.
I do try to be cognizant of that when I see it. But anyway, obviously not a bot. And thank you for coming on, Dylan. Other folks out there, if you'd like to come on and do a film study short about that one play that you remember, you have fond memories of, can be whatever slant you like on it. Dylan's got an interesting one here. Other folks who have had some personal experience at the game. Maybe you took your first trip to America to watch some particular game, or you have some place you were doing, or there was a big spill at home because of this play. I mean, whatever it might be, I'd just be interested in hearing it and talking about the one play and your recollections of it and how it fits into Ravens history, if that's your angle. But would love to have you on. DMs are always open on Twitter. Please hit me up and I will get right back to you. Dillingham, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Ken. It's been a pleasure.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.
Welcome to Breezeline, where you'll say, "Ta-ta, T-Mobile," because we've got more reliable home internet that's a whole lot faster. In fact, 10 times faster. No, seriously, because we have real internet backed by our fiber-powered network. And T-Mobile, well, they just have a 5G cellular network. So act now to get superior home internet. Find your perfect speed with prices starting at just $19.99 a month for 24 months. Terms and conditions apply. Go to breezeline.com to learn more.